Hallelujah. 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 Yahushua Shabbat Tiftak Ofi. Yagi Te Teaka. Yah, open my mouth and my lips, that I may bring forth your praises. Amen. Shabbat Shalom, Israelites. It's been a while. Prayerfully, this new Power Talk. Oh, how much I hate this thing. I hope this new Power Talk will hold up for a little while. I've tried to reinstall the old one. It won't let me. And this one, well, we're going to see what it'll do. We'll put it in the Most High's hand. You know, it's like, I can't reduce the size of this thing. I had to pull it to the side and try to keep an eye on whether you're still able to hear or not. I can't be, they try to force you to buy this thing. And it really is not worth it. At any rate, let's get it moving. The title of our lesson is The Times of the Gentiles. Countdown to Armageddon. We seem to be always counting down. That's why I don't know when it's going to happen. We just watch the signs and the seasons. We look at the prophecies. We look at the scripture and we make an effort to understand the signs and the seasons that the Most High Yah puts before us. Ain't nothing spooky here. Shabbat Shalom to the elders, the emote, brothers and sisters, Akim, Akayot, of this set-apart assembly. Yahushua speaks from beginning to end. Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. A few definitions to begin with, or at least one to begin with, so that I can differentiate between what historians and other prognosticators try to divide the word of the Most and discern the word of the Most High Yah when they speak on the subject of geopolitics. Geopolitics being, in this sense, subject matter that incorporates history, yes, that delves into the intersection between geography, politics, and what the world calls history. It's the intersection thereof with the fulfillment of the word of the Most High Yah. I want to start with a reading out of 2nd Esdras 15, chapter 15, verses 28 through 33. 2nd Esdras, chapter 15, verses 28 through 33. And it reads on this wise. The caption reads, A Terrifying Vision of Warfare. What a terrifying sight appearing from the east. This is the east, here where we live here in Israel. And all this area around about. The Holy Land and going east all the way to China and the Pacific. This is the east. The nations of the dragons of Arabia shall come out with many chariots. They call them tanks today. Overland vehicles or whatever have you. And from the day that they set out, their hissing shall spread over the earth, so that all who hear them will fear and tremble. Also, the Carmonians. They were known as the Carmonians in history because, you know, many countries have had many different names. But today the Carmonians are known as the Iranians. Raging in wrath shall go forth like wild boars from the forest. And with great power they shall come and engage them in battle. And with their tusk they shall devastate a portion of the land of the Assyrians. The land of the Assyrians in history, were the Assyrians in history, but in modern day, if you can reach all the way from the Mediterranean coast, or what is known as the modern Jewish state of Israel, all the way over toward Iraq and Iran. And then the dragons, remembering their origin, shall become still stronger. And if they combine in great power and turn to pursue them, then these shall be disorganized and silenced by their power, and shall turn and flee. And from the land of the Assyrians, an enemy in ambush shall attack them and destroy one of them, and fear and trembling shall come upon their army, and indecision upon their kings. The Carmanians, the dragons of Arabia. Over the ages, they set names and times and seasons. But these struggles in this part of the world where the Holy Land can be found, well, it began as the Holy Land. It's more than that now, or less than that. It depends on how you want to define it. Let's take a look. Looking a little bit into the past, because we've been told great lies by the Euro-Gentile nations who either fabricate the facts or they use the power to define to make it whatever it is that they want. If I can still be heard, give me a 7, please. I had to keep checking. Okay. This is about the 34th part of this, and it's ever evolving because the times evolve, the seasons evolve. The will and plan of the Most High Yah evolves. Previously, in parts of this countdown to Armageddon, for those who weren't there, or for those who need a refresher. You know, they brought before us, this 9/11, the World Trade situation. They claimed that it was a terrorist attack. But was it? Was it true or not true? What happened really? Yeah, we saw what looked to be planes flying into a building. And they gave us this story about 19 Saudi Arabians that were on board. And this, if you remember, kicked off this whole pursuit, this whole thing they call the war on terrorism. Yeah. Now, the funny thing about it was, and it didn't make any sense whatsoever, was that they said it was 19 Saudi Arabians. Yet, we remember that immediately thereafter, they invaded Afghanistan. What does Saudi Arabia have to do with Afghanistan? Nothing. Except that they didn't expect anyone to be paying attention, close enough attention, to realize that it wasn't 19 Afghanis on board this plane instead of Saudis. The truth of the matter was, any important Saudi Arabians that was in America at that time, even though, if you remember, the skies were closed. No aircraft could fly except military. But they ushered out of America all, elite Saudis. They flew them out, courtesy of the U.S. military. So what that be about? The truth of the matter is, the long story short, this 9/11, the World Trade Centers and all that, was a false flag attack. What do I mean? Let me see if I'm still being heard. I got to keep checking. If I can still be heard, give me a 7. Okay, keep it moving. As I said, most of the so-called 9/11 hijackers who crashed in these planes, there was 3 different planes. One went into the Pentagon, and 2 supposedly went into the World Trade Center. Now, you know they got graphics up to a point. Nowadays, they can make you think you're seeing one thing when it's actually If I can still be heard, give me a 7. Okay, moving right along. Okay, as I said, most of the alleged hijackers were from Saudi Arabia. They were trained in the United States at various locations about how to fly. This has even been admitted by certain U.S. government, so not explained, but admitted. Yet, if this was the case, why did the U.S. military invade Afghanistan? I can give you a few reasons. And not Saudi Arabia. The United States, or the United Snakes of America, as we call it, and its allies' real objective in Afghanistan was to continue to be, or as it continues to be 16 years later, the control of the opium trade, big business, billions of dollars. Oh, and I don't mean for no street drugs. No. I don't mean that at all. But control of Afghanistan and its opium production for profit. The current note now, what are we having today in parts of the world, particularly in America? Opiate crisis. People are ODing on fentanyl and all these opium derivatives, not heroin so much so, or any of these street drugs, but pharmaceuticals made by pharmaceutical corporations is a bigger business than street drugs. You see them falling out everywhere. White folk fallen over dead in the United States of America and other nations in Europe. The so-called 9/11 incident was a deliberate attack caused by controlled demolitions. In other words, they made those bits. You notice how they came straight down? They didn't just explode in 1,000 pieces. They came straight down. In some instances, hours after these so-called planes hit the buildings. They were controlled demolitions, high explosives set off by American intelligence agencies, not terrorist attacks from foreign land and foreigners. Okay, now let's touch that. Let's keep it moving. I'm going to show you some history. Because this didn't just start on 9/11 or thereabouts. President Dwight D. Eisenhower, as those of you will remember when I brought this part before, President Dwight D. Eisenhower in 1961 warned the American people about the dangers of the rise of the U.S. United States of America military-industrial complex. That was in 1961. Now, even today, even with this fool Donald Trump, who said he was going to make America great again, and it's supposed to be this, emphasis on business, still yet bows down to the American, United States of America military-industrial complex. Every weapon that they have, every weapon they can think of, they revving it up, revving it up, revving it up. But if you don't have wars, what use do you have for these weapons? So there will be no peace anywhere that the United States of America has anything to do with it. They always call out Russia and different others. Warmonger, as I've shown you in the past, it's the United States of America. It's no different under Donald Trump. Let me show you this quick video. This is what Dwight D. Eisenhower said back in it's about 2 minutes and 30 seconds. Back in 1961. And it tell me whether or not it holds true today. Just a minute, let me put this link in if I can get Pal Joke to cooperate. If you could access this link, give me a 7 in the room, please. If you could access that link, give me a 7. Okay, Dateline. I'm going to play it very quickly. Let me see here. Hold on. Let me get it in myself. Okay. We'll count down. Mute yours and then we'll play it from here. Count down from 5 to 0. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Hit play.
Ladies and gentlemen, the President of the United States. Americans. We now stand 10 years past the midpoint of a century that has witnessed 4 major wars among great nations. Until the latest of our world conflicts, the United States had no armaments industry. American makers of plowshares could, with time and as required, make swords as well. But we can no longer risk emergency improvisation of national defense. We have been compelled to create a permanent armaments industry of vast proportions. Added to this, 3.5 million men and women are directly engaged in the defense establishment. Now, this conjunction of an immense military establishment and a large arms industry is new in the American experience. The total influence, economic, political, even spiritual, is felt in every city, every state house, every office of the federal government. We recognize the imperative need for this development, yet we must not fail to comprehend its grave implications. Our toil, resources, and livelihood are all involved. So is the very structure of our society. In the councils of government, we must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex. The potential for the disastrous rise of misplaced power exists and will persist. We must never let the weight of this combination endanger our liberties or democratic processes. We should take nothing for granted. Only an alert and knowledgeable citizen can compel the proper meshing of the huge industrial and military machinery of defense with our peaceful methods and goals, so that security and liberty may prosper together.
All right, come on back up in the room. So you see, all that time ago, back in the 1950s, early 60s, because he went out of office in 1961, I believe, he warned of this, what they call the industrial military complex. That was then. That was 50 plus years ago. Since then, spiritually and prophetically, everything has gone out of control. So you can sort of see why they would invent, and I do mean invent, episodes like 9/11 and all the other things they've invented and continue to invent since then. Attention to the burden of Damascus, because Damascus, the capital of Syria, figures very heavily into the scenario of the plan that these demonic forces, spurred on by the military-industrial complex, have in mind. I want to turn to let's turn to the book of Isaiah, the 17th chapter, verses 1 through 3, as we continue to set the stage for the continuation of this episodic lesson that I bring from time to time to keep you updated on world affairs and geopolitics. Isaiah, the 17th chapter, verses 1 through 3. And it reads on this wise. The burden of Damascus. Behold. So I got. If I can be heard, give me a 7. Okay. So I got to constantly check this thing, because 1 minute the mic is on, the next minute it's off. Isaiah chapter 17, verses 1 through 4 or 5. The burden of Damascus. Behold, Damascus is taken away from being a city. Look at Damascus today. Nothing much remains of it. And it shall be a ruinous heap. You can see it all day long on any news channel that you want to look at. The cities of Aurora are forsaken. They shall be for flocks. Today it's not even that. Where are the flocks? Which shall lie down, and none shall make them afraid. The fortress also shall cease from Ephraim, and the kingdom from Damascus, and the remnant of Syria. You see, Syria has existed for thousands of years. Except that at one time it was much bigger, not this gerrymandered thing that you see that was created by the Sykes-Picot Accord. The fortress also shall cease from Ephraim, and the kingdom from Damascus, and the remnant of Syria. They shall be like the glory of the children of Israel, saith Yah of hosts. And in that day it shall come to pass that the glory of Yaakov, Jacob, shall be made thin, and the fatness of his flesh shall become lean. And it shall be as when the reaper gathereth the grain and reapeth the ears with his arm, and it shall be as he had gathered the ears in Ephraim. You see, we're talking about a rich part of this area of the world. It's rich, but they have reduced it to rubble. Moving right along. The burden of Damascus. So today, since 2013, again now, keep thinking back to 9/11. Keep thinking to all the chaos has been unleashed since then. First on the country that had nothing to do with 9/11, that was Afghanistan. Then they began to clear out a swath of land. Part of their plan. Plan for what? I'll get to that. The burden of Damascus, the Syrian war. The cost in 4 years, from 2013 just to 2017, because we're just getting into 2018. The doctrine of regime change. Objective, as we've seen, I'm not going to go back over to, we saw in previous videos by General, what's his name? Stanley Clark, where he said, he admitted, he confessed, as a U.S. general over U.S. forces in that part of the world, that they had a plan, the United States had a plan to overthrow 5 countries in 5 years. Number 1, Iraq, 2003. Stated reasons for invasion. Now remember, they didn't have no reason to go to Afghanistan. Those were Saudis on board that so-called plane. Okay, same thing. Stated reason for invasion. Iraq has weapons of mass destruction. Isn't that what they say? When in fact, Iraq's weapons of mass destruction, be it nuclear, biological, chemical, were destroyed by the United States inspectors in 2001, 2 years before the war started. But yet, many of you all remember the episodes on TV where Colin Powell, the then Secretary of State, was holding up this little vial. Looked like some clear water to me. And he was saying that this is chemical weapons, chemical agents that could be used to create a situation of mass destruction. They had already gotten rid of them 2 years before. But after the Iraqi invasion of Kuwait, which they were given U.S. approval to do, an invasion of Iraq took place, and Saddam Hussein was hanged. But why did they do it? Why did they invade there? Many reasons. I can just tell you one, and that's sufficient. Oil. Vast amounts of oil. And the fact that Saddam Hussein had done the United States' dirty work in terms of going to war with Iran. Didn't succeed, but they had to cover it up. And if that wasn't enough, Saddam Hussein had wised up and wanted to take the oil revenues that the vast oil production in Iraq was producing off the U.S. dollar, and that was the final straw. He wanted to abandon the U.S. dollar and trade in gold. Iraq under Saddam Hussein was not part of the Federal Reserve banking system controlled by the Rothschilds. Moving right along. Next was Libya. 2011. If I can still be heard, give me a 7, please. Okay, just got to keep checking. Libya, 2011. Stated reason for invasion. Again, like I say, it's always said to be one thing, just like 9/11, but really the reason was another. Libyan leader, Muammar Gaddafi, as a response to the Western U.S. plot coming out of the so-called Arab Spring to bring liberation across North Africa. So they wanted to get rid of all these so-called strong men so that they could come in there and seize their resources. The story went that he was oppressing the Libyan people. Whereas the truth is that Gaddafi, yeah, he was a tyrant. He wasn't no good guy. At the time, had the highest standard of living in Africa. Gaddafi wanted to create a new monetary system that used gold as a currency to finance and rehabilitate all of Africa. Gaddafi's Libya, and like I say, he wasn't a good guy, he was a bandit. But yet, he had understanding enough to know that if he lifted up his own people, or helped his own people to stand on their feet, then Libya could be a great nation again. When you got married, you got a certain amount of money. You got a free house. You had free education from cradle to whatever advanced degree you wanted. And many, when you got married, you got 50,000 dinars, which, you know, was higher rated than dollars. And so forth and so on. They couldn't have that. When you compare it to what you have in Libya today, you have chaos. You got 2 or 3 governments. If you get any oil out of it, no, what are they doing? They're stealing oil. They don't even have to pay for it. Or they make some little cheap deal with this government in the east and a government in the west and a government in the south and a government in the north. So you got chaos. They wanted, again, to have those gold reserves, those oil reserves, and bring them all into the World Bank, Federal Reserve banking system controlled by the Rothschilds. Continuing right along, this is the part of review and in part of look forward. Next was Syria. May 5th, 2013. Stated reason for invasion. Bashar al-Assad, the Arab Spring. The Syrian president, they brought religion into it this time. You see, Islam. We know a little something about Islam. I don't get in depth with that, but only to this extent. There's two branches of Islam: Shia Islam, as practiced by the Alawite sect in Syria, aligned with the Iranians, aligned with groups like Hezbollah and a few others. They are Shiite Muslims or Shia Muslims, as opposed to the greater, larger group of Sunni Islam, Sunni Muslims like Saudi Arabia and some of these partners in this war that you see going on. They are one sect against another sect of the same religion, which came out of the Catholic Church, as Jacob has taught on many occasions. Roman Catholicism created Islam. They financed it, fostered it, and has pretty much guided through all its different revivals. Again, they wanted Syria to become part of the Federal Reserve. It was not a member of it. They couldn't control their economy. The Rothschilds didn't control Syria either. It was little known that even though they talk about Saudi Arabia and Libya and Iraq is being huge or having huge oil reserves, Syria has oil too. But even more important was they needed ways to transport this oil between all these countries that are surrounding Syria, from the Gulf states to the Mediterranean. And Syria was the route. So the whole interest of destabilizing Syria was, on the one hand, to get this route that would help the Western nations, Israel and others, to get that oil out of this part of the world to wherever they wanted to transport it to. Through Turkey, the Gulf states, whatever. So this is the background to this story. If I can still be heard, give me a 7, please. Okay. Moving right along. The rise and fall of ISIS. ISIS. I-S-I-S. Now, we've heard a lot about them. We know that the United States had their hands in this pie too. There are even pictures of, what is his name, from Arizona, the war hero, John McCain. Pictures of John McCain, and in the background, they had, before he became the Caliph, a picture of Abu Bakr Baghdadi, who became the head of the so-called Caliph of ISIS. Right there in the same picture. But what happened to ISIS? Was it 1 year, 2 years, 3 years ago, 4 years? They was the new scourge. They was wiping out the Middle East, chopping off heads, and they created a caliph. Where did they come from? And where have they gone? We're talking about from January 2014 to where we are now, March 2000. Where is ISIS? Let me show you this map, just to give you an idea. And think about it. What happened to them? Where did they go all of a sudden? If you could access this link, give me a 7 in the room, please. Open this up. If you could access that link, give me a 7 in the room, please. These maps show how drastically ISIS territory has shrunk since its peak. Look at this. Compare the two. October 2014, you can see how much land that ISIS is said to have controlled. And the picture on the right, October 2017. Where did ISIS go? Let's see. ISIS territory reached its height in 2014 when the group controlled several major cities in Syria and Iraq. And they had little satellites all over the world. By 2017, ISIS has lost control of its major strongholds, and now the terrorist group occupies only a small enclave in the desert. Big difference. Experts agree that although the group will lose its territorial holds, it will continue to fester as an insurgency and global terrorist network. I wonder how that is. Is it by accident or is it a plan? As we recall, millions fled Syria and Iraq. Now, two things have happened. From Syria to Iraq, it's a scorched earth. Everything has been destroyed. Towns, cities that have existed for thousands of years are no longer there. Sounds awful convenient. That means that they can go through there when they get ready to finance it. They got rid of the people. They've gotten rid of the structures. In many cases, they've gotten rid of the governments and replaced it with who they want there. So what's the plan? They didn't care about the people. Millions have fled, and millions have been killed. They still digging out bodies from Iraq, from Syria. Still digging them out. Moving right along. Since ISIS made international headlines by invading Iraq from Syria in June 2014, its territory has shrunken considerably. The terrorist group's steady loss of territory culminated with the fall of de facto capital at Raqqa, Syria, last week. In October 2014, ISIS territory in Syria and Iraq was at its maximum. The radical Islamist group, sponsored, might as well say sponsored again by the United States. It's kind of funny how you always got this connection. Al-Qaeda, Osama bin Laden, United States. All these other so-called alphabet super terrorist groups, somewhere in there, the United States. They either train them or arm them or both. Give them money. Why? They're supposed to be terrorists. That's because they have a deeper plan. In October 2014, ISIS territory in Syria was at its maximum. The radical Islamist group controlled land stretching from central Syria all the way to the outskirts of Baghdad, including major cities like Mosul, Fallujah, Tikrit, and Raqqa. Although the region ISIS controlled was mostly desert, It encompassed an array of ethnic and religious groups, including Assyrian Christians, Yazidis, Kurds, Shiite Arabs, Sunni Arabs. Many of the non-Sunni groups were victims of targeted violence. Eliminated. ISIS did it. When the real hand was America did it. Britain did it. And the other collaborators. They did it. They gave them the arms. They couldn't fight with sticks and stones. They could commit genocide with just a few knives hacking off heads. They had high-grade missile technology, all kinds of weaponry. They claimed they was dropping it for the so-called friendly, what they call them? Contra-rebels. No, not the contra-rebels. They called them, Obama had a name for them. But you know what I'm talking about. The ones that were not supposed to be ISIS. But yet, how can you tell the difference? Because they wear one uniform today and another one tomorrow? They were ISIS. Something of their own creation. Moving right along. Okay. ISIS was a smoke screen just like 9/11. It didn't really happen. Only Iran east of Iraq still stands. For what reasons? All the other precious commodities. They're trying to undo Iran another way. And yes, by clearing out this huge swath of land, the biblical boundaries of ancient Israel could be artificially redrawn. Artificially redrawn and reestablished. How do I know? Let's take a look at this. Beginning in 2011, Israel began preparing for war in the north. It started to boost its defenses. It was Iran, and the boogeyman was Iran. The only one that they had not invaded. Make it clear now, Israelis are serious about reestablishing. It wasn't their biblical Israel, but they're all about reestablishing the biblical Israel. Not for spiritual reasons, but economic ones. Hold on a second. Let me give you this link. Don't believe me? I'm going to show you proof. If you could access this link, give me a 7 in the room, please. Dateline. Just a minute. I need it myself. Okay. All right. I want you to just look at this map here. Look at this article, look at this map for 1 second. Just kind of take a look, let it soak in. You see the graphics and the diagrams. Now this is Israel, the lower part of Israel, and the part of Israel they call the Gaza Strip. This was back, really much of this was from a few years back. I'd say 4 or 5 years back. I mean, this has just been intensifying recently, since 2006, somewhere along that line. Israel preparing for war in the north. I live in the north, so yes, I can verify. There's always something going on here. Boost air defenses, warns Iran. You know, there's always got to be a boogeyman, and Iran is it. The Armenians. One day after the most significant escalation in tensions between Israel and Syria, Iran, when an F-16 was shot down over the Golan Heights after it attacked Syrian base, which this was just recently. This was maybe, 2-3 weeks ago? After, allegedly, Iran launched a drone. Now, let's check that out. A drone now versus F-16 aircraft. It was a provocation. Oh, it gets much deeper than this. Why is it necessary to send squadrons of X-16 fighter bombers as a result of a drone, which is usually just, it could be offensive as well, but it's usually a intelligence thing. You know, it's coming to gather pictures and stuff like that. But in response, Israel is really appearing to be preparing for war in the north. Yes, it feels like that. It feels like that. You can hear what do you call it? Aerial, planes and things. Now, and here in Israel, you don't have a lot of planes. Let me put it this way. You might have a lot of planes, but it's not like, because of the circumstance here, you won't hear airplanes just flying over everywhere. Okay? They keep it tightly controlled. If your airplane coming into Israeli airspace, they track you. They know exactly who you are. And if you coming from any other place than where they tracking, you in trouble. You got a problem. So this is what I'm saying. So we here in the north we hear a lot of activity in the skies. Squadrons of jets and fighters and all that, making exercise and all that. And it's been intensifying lately. So they're preparing for a new war in the north. The Jerusalem Post, which reports that the Jewish state has boosted its air defense in the region along the Syrian border. We live about, I guess the Syrian border is about 35, 40 minutes from here. Following a significant confrontation between the Jewish state, Syria, and Iran, witnesses cited by the J-Post or Jerusalem Post reported seeing a convoy of missile defense batteries heading north near the Israeli Arab city of Baqat al-Gharbiya. Yes, I know where that is, but it was right next door before we moved here. Hold on a second. Baqat al-Gharbiya. And the way you know this is because, these weapons, they travel along the highways. You know what I'm saying? If the traffic slows down, there's a good possibility is military equipment being moved over the same roads. Tanks and artillery. They have them camouflaged and covered up in some instances. But all the time, the same highways are used for military use as civilian use. Other witnesses posted photos of several trucks carrying batteries on central highways in northern Israel. Israel's air defenses currently include the Iron Dome. Well, yeah, we've seen it at work. You see them all the time. Designed to shoot down short-range missiles. They used it a lot with the Gaza war. You can see here the graphic here, pretty much a idea of how they attempt to defend or do offensive attacks against, whether it be from the air, missile batteries, or from the sea off the coast in the Mediterranean. You can get a good idea of You know, some of their, you know, it's still sketchy, but some of their air defenses. The air defenses, so far, you know, they've only employed the Iron Dome, which is for short-range missiles that are used up here in this area near the Lebanese border and down near Gaza in the south. But they have others that brought online, the Arrow and David Sling, and you see they like to name them after the biblical characters, you know, because they the people. At least they want us everybody to think so. Additionally, there is the Arrow system, which intercepts ballistic missiles outside the Earth's atmosphere, and David Sling defense system, which is designed to intercept tactical ballistic missiles, medium to long-range rockets, and cruise missiles fired from ranges of between 40 kilometers and 300 kilometers. Let me see if anything more. Okay. When you look back at the recent history, in a dramatic escalation, Israel carried out a major air raid in Syria on Saturday, including against what is described as Iranian targets, the first time it had publicly acknowledged doing so since the war began. See, it's beginning to get a little bit deeper and more complicated now. The raids came after an Israeli F-16 was shot down by Syrian air defenses / Russian missiles. See, Syria didn't have the ability to do this before. But now that Russia is one of their patrons in this ongoing war against terrorism, as they call it, the Syrians have began to deploy more accurate, more powerful missile defenses that were installed after they purchased it from Russia. I won't go into them. Other Israeli ministers spoke of refusing to accept Iran entrenching itself militarily in Syria. As Netanyahu has said repeatedly, Tehran denies it is doing so. What's the problem exactly? What is the problem with Iran being over there in Syria? Well, it's right next door. And taken alone, the Syrians are no match for the military of Israel. But Iran, being a declared enemy, of Israel, has the missile technology. Even though they might not have the atomic bomb, they have the missile technology to devastate Israel with missiles. How do I know? I've seen it. In the last couple of wars, the war with Lebanon, the war in Gaza, if it were not for the defensive missiles that Israel, with the help of the United States, has in their possession, it would have been a terrible thing. Missiles were falling from everywhere. And yes, I know what it's to be like to be in a bomb shelter. I sure do. It doesn't deter me because I'm here by the will of the Most High Yah, prayerfully. And only with His protection are you safe. Missiles they're all over the world. So that's nothing to be afraid of. You take the precautions as much as you can, and the rest of it's in the Most High's hand. Ain't nothing to be afraid of. Keep it moving. That's enough of that. You can read the rest of that on your own. Keep it moving right along. Okay. Now, something I want you to see, because I don't want you to take my word for it. I have a short video. It's about 20 minutes long. That's right. We trust in the Most High, Sister Grace. We can't worry about it. You know what I'm saying? We've heard missiles explode just across the street. And, we take precautions. Now, we're not stupid now. We don't say, oh, it ain't going to hit me. No, we don't do that now. We ain't that stupid. We take the precautions. And the rest of us in the Most High's hand. Okay, moving right along as I was saying. Okay. The Greater Israel Program. What is it? Got a couple of things. I want to show you that. And after that, I want to show you something called the Tau Creek Oak Project. I think you'll find it quite interesting. The Greater Israel Program. You can access this link. Give me a 7 in the room, please. Those of you all that's on the radio station, I pray that the radio station is up. First, let me post this link in the room. If you can access this link, give me a 7 in the room, please. Those of you all that are listening from the radio station, in order to access this link, this is what you do. Hold on. What happened to my, wait a minute. Tell you, it's a pain having to go from this Power Talk. Those of you all on the radio program, go to YouTube. Put in Greater Israel Program. Okay, it's a video, 19 minutes and 58 seconds long, called the Greater Israel Program. Okay. Do I have it myself? Let me see. Let me reduce this a little bit. Pull this Power Talk screen down. What's the pain? Let me access this myself.
Kenneth O'Keefe served as a U.S.
Okay. Back it up. 000. This is a video from RT, Russian TV. We're going to count down from 5 to 0. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Hit play.
Kenneth O'Keefe, after being discharged, he was left with only a feeling of disappointment. He burned his U.S. passport and dedicated himself to a different cause. His rich activist biography includes being a human shield in Iraq, sailing on a Gaza flotilla, protecting marine life in Hawaii, and helping establish dialogue with Iran. And he is our guest today.
As a Marine, Kenneth O'Keefe fought against Iraq. It shattered his view of the world. Ever since, he has been fighting a war against war, facing American bombs as a human shield or running the Gaza blockade. He is never afraid to speak truth to power. But what makes him take up action for others?
So I'm here with activist Kenneth O'Keefe. It's really great to have you on our show. Kenneth, I know that you've led a human shield action in Iraq right before the war started, and then you were deported. Why do you think the removal of Saddam hasn't improved the lives of Iraqis? Or has it? I don't know.
Well, I think if you really want to know the truth about the invasion of Iraq, there's clearly some incentives for the invasion. Oil, securing oil was one of them. Establishing permanent military bases in the region was another one. But a far less talked about reality is Israeli plans, which made clear that the balkanization of surrounding countries, in particular Iraq, if we go to Oded Yanan's plan for Israel in the 1980s, it lays out very clearly a strategy of destabilizing all of the surrounding areas of Israel. This includes Syria, Lebanon, Jordan, Iraq, and even Egypt and Saudi Arabia. And this long-term goal is part of the Greater Israel Project. So in terms of the sectarian divide you see happening in Iraq today, it's actually all part of a very well-designed plan to try and secure the goal, this fantasy goal of the Greater Israel Project.
Okay, but why would Israel benefit from an unstable Middle East, unstable Arab nations? Because what we see that this instability actually is followed by fundamental Islam. And people who are overthrown are either replaced by fundamentalist powers or there's just more sectarian violence that grows.
Yes, and it would seem on the surface from a sane point of view that everything is going wrong. But in fact, when you fracture a country along sectarian divide, ultimately you weaken the country. What the last thing that Israel or the United States wants is a strong Nasser-type leader, an Arab nationalist who will seriously ensure that the resources of that country are taken and protected and used for the benefit of the people. That's the last thing that the empire wants and that Israel wants. So
there you go.
while you have these religious fundamentalist nutcases who are running around bombing and doing all sorts of stuff like that, you have a weakened, fractured country in Iraq, and that is the prerequisite for ultimately expanding Israel into the fantasy of the Greater Israel Project. It doesn't seem sane, and it's not sane, because those who are trying to carry out these agendas are pure and simple psychopaths.
And so you think that American administrations, one after another, have been following this plan for 30 years?
If you ask me how the world functions, you have to understand one thing plain and simple. The head of the snake, the system of power, is headed by the financial system. The bankers rule the earth through the private control, the issuance of money, debt-based money, which we're all supposed to pay, ultimately with all of these things that they call austerity and whatnot. The bankers basically, through the control of the issuance of money, which allows them to provide themselves with an infinite supply of money, means they can buy anything and anyone that can be bought. So when we look at the vast majority of governments around the world, they're nothing more than puppets who are carrying out an agenda for the bankers. And the bankers at the top of this pyramid are, as I've said, plain and simple psychopaths. They're drunk on their own power. They're used to getting everything they want. They can buy anything and anyone that can be bought. And this explains the corruption of virtually every government we can look at. And the policies do not reflect the interests of the people. They reflect pure and simple the interests of the bankers.
But Kenneth, if what you're saying is true, that governments obey the big banks and the big money, then it would really take the people and revolution in each country that you have named to actually change things around. Do you really see revolution taking place in America, for example?
Well, it's already happening. I'll give you a great example of why I'm optimistic about things in America. You know, the President of the United States, traitor that he is actually a constitutional lawyer. He's actually trained at the highest levels of university in constitutional law. Do you know how obscene it is that somebody who is trained in constitutional law, giving himself the authority to execute anyone, anywhere, at any part of the planet with no jury, no trial, no conviction, no nothing?
You're talking about Obama.
A dictator who has assigned himself the right to execute anyone, including U.S. citizens. I am confident that at some point the American patriots, who seem to be in a bit of a coma and have been sleeping for a long time, are going to await the Constitution of the United States. The President of the United States also took that oath and has breached it so badly that he should be arrested and charged with treason right now. And ultimately, all of the sycophants in the U.S. Congress who passed things like the Patriot Act and the National Defense Authorization Act, again, completely contrary to the U.S. Constitution, which is supposed to be the supreme law of the land, these people need to be arrested. And a government needs to be put in place that actually honors the U.S. Constitution. And I honestly believe that's going to happen. One way or the other, it's going to happen.
But you just started your answer by saying that the revolution is already happening. So where is the revolution that you're talking about?
I'll tell you what, this is another thing that really excites me, Sophie, because while you're not seeing it, apparently, and many other people may not be seeing it, let me give you a perfect example where the revolution has already occurred. And the first step of that revolution is awareness. No one is more hopelessly enslaved than those who falsely believe they are free. The people of the world are starting to realize that they have been enslaved in a financial system which is effectively selling the future of their children down the river. And more people are becoming aware of that. They're also sick and tired of being lied to about one boogeyman after another. And ultimately, what happened in Syria, this is a key point, and I really want to make this point before we move on to the next one, because it's talking about the revolution that you're referring to. The reason why we did not hit Syria, the reason why we did not start bombing Syria, is a one simple thing, and that is that the people of the West and the world simply did not buy it. They didn't have to go on the street and protest. Keep in mind, back in 2003, we had the largest protest in the history of the world, did not stop the invasion of Iraq. But I'm telling you, the invasion and the occupation and ultimately the bombardment of Syria has been planned long ago. It's a stepping stone towards Iran, which is the ultimate goal for these psychopaths. And they could not bombard Syria. And the reason why they couldn't even vote to secure that vote to favor that here in Britain is because the people overwhelmingly did not buy it. In the United States, the approval for bombardment of Syria was about 9%. That's why the U.S. Congress, which is a treasonous body of government, couldn't even go to a vote on it, because if they went to a vote on it and actually voted for another war, and this farcical war on terror, where the fantastic American servicemen took pictures of themselves saying, I did not join the U.S. military to fight with al-Qaeda in Syria, says it all. If they had made that move, there would have been an open revolution. The powers that be know that the people are primed and ready to take major steps to stop this. And again, American patriots are going to go into the Congress and the White House eventually and arrest these cowards and traitors. But it's under the surface right now. It's getting ready. And to show the power of the people, ultimately, we did not go into Syria. This is because the people did not provide the one key element for the powers that be, and that is their consent. If they don't have our consent, they can't do a damn thing. The point that I'm making is that the U.S. president has given himself the authority to execute anyone, anywhere, anytime, for any pretext, any bogus reason. Is that more of a problem to the world than Bashar al-Assad? Of course it is. It's much more of a problem that the president of the United States can execute anyone, anywhere, anytime. And yet we're sitting here talking about Bashar al-Assad, which, granted, this man has committed crimes in Syria. There's no question of that. But when we look at the U.S. president, when we look at Israel, when we look at the Britain, this alliance, this true axis of evil between these three countries, the amount of devastation that has occurred in Iraq and Afghanistan and other parts of the world, Yemen, Pakistan, it's so devastating. I think it's beggars belief that we as people can be conned into thinking that Bashar al-Assad is the problem or that Ahmadinejad was the problem. We're the problem. We in the West are the problem, especially the United States government. So it really is quite ridiculous that we get manipulated into saying, oh, we have to take care of this problem over there. The problem is in our own backyard. And we know this. We've got to take care of our dirty, filthy house of corruption. The United States Congress is nothing but a den of traitors, the most sycophantic, disgusting traitors you can imagine. And the White House has got a dictator. This is a problem. This is a major problem, much bigger problem than what's happening in Syria with Bashar al-Assad.
Now, you have great knowledge and strong opinions about events in the Middle East. Iran has recently softened its attitude towards its opponent after decades of deadlock. Israel is annoyed, and how do you see that developing?
I think it's a reflection of the sanity of the people around the world who realize that any kind of attack on Iran is tantamount to initiating a full-scale Third World War, which of course could very well and inevitably would lead to a war with China and Russia. This is pure madness. And those of us who've lost loved ones or who have served in combat like myself and others who know the devastating cost of war, not just for the so-called victor, because the only victor really is the bankers, quite frankly, but even those who suffer greatly. And testimony to the fact, aside from the 1 million to 2 million dead in Iraq, is the 22 American servicemen a day who are committing suicide because of the horrendous things that they were called to do
in places
like Afghanistan and Iraq. So this policy now, this shift in policy to actually resolve this conflict with Iran, this false conflict in truth, is a reflection of the will of the people, if you ask me, which is starting to achieve goal.
So you think Netanyahu is bluffing? Because I've spoken to a couple of Israeli parliamentarians, I've spoken to Israelis, and they're all for a strike.
Yes. No, I don't think that he's bluffing. He's an absolute psychopath. And he reflects the agenda for the powers that be in Israel. Each one of these players, Netanyahu, George Bush, Obama, Cameron, they're all puppets, and they're all supposed to read a different script at different times depending on what the agenda is. The agenda is shifting slightly, and it looks like Israel and the people of Israel, the Jewish state of Israel, are like sheep being led to slaughter. Because ultimately the policies of Israel are completely and totally unsustainable. Even the CIA said in 2009 that Israel would not even exist within 20 years. Henry Kissinger himself said it wouldn't exist within 10 years. And the reason why is because its policies are totally self-destructive, and the puppet masters are quite happy to sacrifice the people of Israel. They're going to destroy themselves if you attack Iran, because Iran can fight back and does have allies, and a lot of countries are sick and tired of Israel's threats to both its immediate neighbors and even to the rest of the world. When we look at the Samson option, I encourage people to Google Samson option and look at the threat that Israel is posed to the world if things don't go its way.
But when you talk about the United States is Israel's main supporter, but right now we see that it's kind of open to Iran as well, knowing how much anxiety that raises among Israelis. What does it tell you about the U.S.?
It tells me that the people are beginning to realize their power. I think there's things that correlate. The approval rating for Barack Obama in the U.S. Congress is about as low as it's possible to get, somewhere in the neighborhood of 10%, 20% maximum. The people have come to a point where they are sick and tired of being lied to. They know they're being lied to. And when they see their so-called leaders trying to cooperate with Israel in yet another war that would lead to disastrous consequences for the region and for the United States and every other person involved, they've had it. And the reflection of the policies is indeed that of the people. It's the people who are sick and tired. And I do see that there is some demarcation going on here between Israel and the United States. But this is because the power of the people is rising. And as we saw in Syria, the Congress and the president was all basically saying the red line was crossed, blah, 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 blah. And this blatantly false flag attack in Ghouta in Syria has backfired. They were not able to carry out this agenda. And this is only empowering the people that much further.
Mm-hmm. So you think Iran should be allowed to develop its nuclear program?
I think it's absolutely hypocritical and insane that we would sit here and fixate on Iran and its supposed nuclear weapons program, which I don't believe exists. But nonetheless, who could blame Iran if they were developing a nuclear weapon? If the United States and the West taught any lesson to the rest of the world with the invasion and occupation of Iraq, it was that Saddam Hussein was a fool for actually disarming, because by disarming, all he did was make it that much easier for the empire to come in and destroy the entire country. So the thing we teach to the world is that the best way to defend yourself is to get yourself a nuclear weapon. And of course, the biggest culprit of using nuclear weapons and producing nuclear weapons and weapons of mass destruction is my birth nation of the United States. And I find it absolutely insane that we sit here and talk about Iran's supposed nuclear weapons program when we know the United States is producing every kind of weapon under the sun, is spending more than every other military on the planet combined, and is involved in more war and more death and more suffering than every other nation combined. And yet it's sitting there on a pedestal talking about other nations developing weapons of mass destruction. It is insane that we even allow them to do this. The first nation that needs to disarm without question is the United States. And the first nation to be charged with war crimes and crimes against humanity is the United States. Once we start seeing actions like this, then we'll know that people in positions of power are serious, because ultimately the rest of the world is sick and tired of the impunity and the continuous threats of a third world war. So we've reached a point now where human beings around the planet are realizing we can't do this. We can't have a third world war. This is not a game.
Okay.
I think that every nation should disarm right now. Every nation that has a weapons program should be inspected by a legitimate international body, and those nations with the highest amount of weapons of mass destruction, nuclear weapons, are the first ones to start disarming. And when those nations start disarming, then I would say that the rest of the world will also have to show that it's disarming as well. But while the United States is able to maintain the largest military might in the history of this world and continues to use those weapons against all of the countries, I only see it as a pure hypocrisy that the West would say that other countries can't have such things. I don't want any weapons in this world, but it's not right for us in the West, in particular the United States, to say that we can have all these weapons and the rest of the world will bomb you to the Stone Age if you even try to think to defend yourself. It's beyond hypocrisy. It's ridiculous. The U.S. needs to disarm first. The world.
I read that you said this world needs one thing about all others, and that's sanity. But doesn't sanity depend on what side of the argument you're on?
No, I think we were all sane when we were children, and unfortunately what passes as education is actually indoctrination. And through indoctrination, we've turned into largely a bunch of dupes who've enslaved ourselves without even knowing it. But when you regain the capacity to think for yourself, to actually become human, it becomes very clear. For instance, if we look at these politicians who historically lied to us over and over and over again, and we realize that the war-making industries are absolutely inherently interested in perpetuating war, and if we look at the people in positions of power and we see how they continuously reap major bonuses with the banks, they get bailouts to the tune of trillions, and yet we're being told that we're not working hard enough, that we're in debt, all of these things combined lead us to a point where we reach a certain level of sanity and realize, you know what? This entire system does not represent me. And in fact, every single person on this planet is fighting the same enemy. And that enemy uses the financial system to enslave all of us. It doesn't take a genius to figure this out. In fact, more and more people are figuring this out. And a point of sanity brings us to a point where we realize, enough. This is a game that cannot be played. We're risking our own collective suicide here. And as a sane person, I will not contribute in any way towards this never-ending policy of war, which is leading us to the brink of destruction. And this is not about being intelligent. This is about being sane, first and foremost. The average person can understand this very easily.
I know that you have renounced U.S. citizenship more than three times, I think, right? So having the U.S. passport is a dream for so many people. What's so wrong with it? I mean, you don't have to agree with U.S. policies, but is America all that bad?
when you look at citizenship, you have to understand that citizenship is a contract. It's a social contract between the state and the citizen. Under that contract, you have supposedly rights, and you also have obligations. Now, I looked at the obligations of being a U.S. citizen, and I realized I cannot pay into a tax system, which is basically paying off debt to the bankers. But nonetheless, we pay into a tax system which is used to produce military capability, which is ultimately killing my brothers and sisters in other parts of the world. I do not agree to contributing to a tax system that is being used to commit mass murder against people I consider to be my brothers and sisters halfway around the world. It's a violation of my ethics as a man, as someone who believes in justice for everyone and wants a better world for everyone. I cannot pay for the murder of my brother or sister, and that's part of the contract of citizenship. So I said, which was to me a sensible thing and a moral thing to do, take my name off of that contract because I do not agree to it, and ultimately I will walk away. And I left a paradise life in Hawaii. I had my own business. I was making money, lived on the beach, did something I loved. You know, I had a beautiful, beautiful life, and I walked from that because I absolutely 100% disagree with the actions of my birth nation and find them so criminal that I need my name to be taken off that list. I will enter into a contract again with the United States if indeed it carries itself with honor and will respect the U.S. Constitution. If the U.S. Constitution is indeed made the supreme law of the United States, then I will happily come back to my nation and adhere to the contract. I would argue probably the reason why they have not honored my right of self-determination, a human right of self-determination, is because it could set a precedent, which could spark an imaginative idea that people could look at around the world and say, you know what, I don't actually agree with this contract with my nation any longer. I want to enter into a new contract. This is why I refer to myself as a world citizen. We're all world citizens. My human family is where my allegiance goes. I don't give my allegiance to one unit, one group, one nation, one religion. My whole human family is a brother and sister, and ultimately I give my allegiance to them. That's the contract I will honor. And if any other contract inferior to that one would try to compel me to pay for the murder of my brother or sister, I will not partake in that contract. I will not pay into the UK system and fund the murder of my brothers and sisters halfway around the world. I simply refuse to do it. And I would argue that other people should look at a contract like that. And maybe if we all decide to enter into a new contract like that, we can end war for good.
So you say you're a world citizen. Is there any place that you love more than others? Why are you living in the UK if you don't like UK policies?
I love Hawaii. My adopted homeland is Hawaii, and the Hawaiian nation was stolen by the United States in 1893, and yet there are my Hawaiian brothers and sisters who are Hawaiian nationals and who know who they are and have not forgotten who they are and take pride in who they are. And if they have their way and I have my way, the Hawaiian nation will no longer be a military outpost for the United States launching its wars of aggression against everybody, the latest boogeyman. Hawaii is the place that I long to live. I plan to return there, but I want the empire out of Hawaii. Hawaii is not an extension of the U.S. empire. It is a Hawaiian nation, and the people of Hawaii, the Kanaka Maoli, deserve to have their nation back.
Tell it. Come on, back up in the room. You said a mouthful, didn't you? Yeah, he Hawaiian now. You see, he a white man. He can do whatever he wants to do. He can call himself this and that. I mean, they stole it all. You know, I steal this, I steal that, I become this, I become that. He made it plain. He said a couple of minutes ago who the real Hawaiians are. This is just a policy they've been perpetuating century after century after century after century as their right. But it only became their right because, again, we, the children of Israel, disobeyed the law, statutes, and commands of the Most High Yah, and we lost our place. See the price? A heavy price. This heathen came on and he was telling the truth. Most of it. But you know, all through it all, had we only been obedient to our Father and obeyed His laws, statutes, and commandments, we could avoid a lot of this. But no, we had to have a king. We had to be like other nations. So the things that we have had to endure, first and foremost, according to Deuteronomy 28th chapter, we brought on ourselves. Let's not get it twisted. Like the white man, the this, the that, or whoever it is. You know, they ain't did us right. We didn't do ourselves right. It was real simple. Obey. And I'm not talking about just the Big Ten. Yes, it starts there. All the laws, statutes, commandments that pertain to us as a people. It was that simple. But no, couldn't do it. That's right. We would be the head and not the tail. Moving right along, got a couple of other things to show you in this part one. Just setting the groundwork, and I wanted to also, like I say, sort of bring those who have not seen any of this series before, you know, so we could be on one accord in one this is a never-ending story until we get it right. Or if we don't get it right, the Most High calls time out. And we go into the pit with all else. But if only 1 or 2 or 3 or 5 or 10 here, and we be about correcting what we have done. See, I can't blame the white man. White man was just a tool. Or any other man, for that matter, that has been part of our captivity and all the other things that we have had to endure. We can only blame ourselves. Because that's where it started. And actually, in truth, that's where it ends. Let's get it right, Israelites. Let's get it right. Nothing else matters. Moving right along. Okay. In this video, he mentioned something called the Samson option. Now, it wasn't part of my original, but this is how I am. This is how I share information and teach. If something is mentioned, then we need to know what it is. Because this is all in the interest of us getting it right according to the Most High. Yeah, we need information. You see, it's so many things that they present to us that's a lie. Straight up lie. Finished. If you watch CNN, you see one thing. If you watch RT, Russian television, you see another thing. If you watch China TV, you might see another slant. Get it straight. These heathens are operating according to what their agenda is. We who live here in the land are by no means deluded. They want to reestablish, at least they would like us to think, or the world will think that they are reestablishing true Israel. When there's been more than enough examples presented by us who bring things of information and edification, and Yahushua speaks from beginning to end, that they have a story and Yah has a story. And nowhere do they meet. Be wise, Israel. Don't believe everything you see on TV. I know most of y'all don't. Some people might. Because they're slick. Sly, slick, and wicked. Make it seem like, what was that came up? Black Panther? Well, that's something for another day. I ain't going to talk about that day. I want to show you this. Hold on. Hold on a second. Just a second. Where are we at? Okay, if you could access this link, give me a 7 in the room, please. If you could access this link, give me a 7 in the room, please. Oh, wait a minute. Give me a second. I got to try to get it. I pray for a better version of Power Talk soon. Okay. This video is 5 minutes and 5 seconds long. We'll count back from 5 to 0 and hit let it rip. Listen from here. Those of you all on the radio program, it's called the Samson Option. Why Arab world fears Israel. YouTube. The Samson Option. Why Arab world fears Israel. Israel. We're going to count, it's 5 minutes and 5 seconds long. We're going to count back from 5 to 0. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Hit play.
Israel is considered to be the regional powerhouse of the Middle East. Be it 1948, 1956, 1967, or 1973 Yom Kippur War, Israel has showed how powerful a force it is when it comes to the Middle East. But there is one another aspect of Israel which many of us don't know. The Samson Option. Why Arab world fears Israel. Samson was the last of the judges of the ancient Israelites, mentioned in the book of Judges in the Hebrew Bible. Before we continue in this video, please press the subscribe button, and if you have already subscribed to our channel, please hit the bell icon to get the notification of every video upload by Hindu Judaism. One of the last of the leaders who judged Israel before the institution of the monarchy, he is considered as a biblical superhero. The biblical account states that Samson was a Nazirite and that he was given immense strength to aid him against his enemies and allow him to perform superhuman feats. However, if Samson's long hair was cut, then his Nazirite vow would be violated and he would lose his strength. Samson was betrayed by his lover, Delilah, who ordered a servant to cut his hair while he was sleeping and turned him over to his Philistine enemies. When the Philistines took Samson into their temple of Dagon, Samson asked to rest against one of the support pillars. After being granted permission, he prayed to God and miraculously recovered his strength, allowing him to grasp hold of the columns and tear them down, killing himself and all the Philistines with him. The Samson Option is the name that some military analysts and authors have given to Israel's deterrent strategy of mass retaliation with the help of nuclear weapons as a last resort against a country whose military has destroyed much of Israel. The name refers to the biblical Samson's last word, "Let me die with my enemies." Israel refuses to affirm or deny it has nuclear weapons or to describe how it would use them. An official policy of nuclear ambiguity. During his 2006 confirmation hearing before the United States Senate regarding his appointment as George W. Bush Secretary of Defense, Robert Gates admitted that Israel had nuclear weapons. The strategic ambiguity serves multiple purposes. It solidifies the Israeli bargaining threat of help me out or you will suffer to a larger power that would rather stay out of it by staying neutral while internationally removing control over their own nuclear retaliation response, while not explicitly targeting anyone in particular and garnering resentment with that PR. The Samson option, taking out Israel's enemies with it, possibly causing irreparable damage to the entire world, has been floated by Israeli strategists including Ariel Sharon as a last-ditch option if Israel faces
annihilation.
The big assumption with this and any nuclear strategy involving mutually assured destruction is that your opponent isn't a death seeker who hates you so much that they also don't care if they die, so long as you do as well. Thanks for watching.
Please back up in the room.
To this space.
I apologize for that particular version. You know, that kind of came on the sly. Some Indian guy. Boy, he needed to get his English straight. Okay. Moving right along, but we get the idea nonetheless. Mutual, what they call mutual assured destruction. If you destroy me, then I will destroy you, or vice versa, however that goes. More importantly, I just wanted to get that in there. I came across something when I was working on this project. You know, I've been living in Israel a long time. I've worked in the past high-tech sector. I wondered, I found out, but I wondered for a long time why it was certain places I couldn't get in. Some of the better positions in the high tech, I couldn't get in. I thought, of course, you know, it was primarily because of my ethnicity, as they like to say these days. But it was much, I didn't realize, I didn't understand at the time. It was much more than that. To give you a brief, before I show you this video. Many high-tech positions here, you have to have a security clearance to even work there. And some of the companies they'll be mentioned in this video, I've applied there, couldn't get through the door. More than, I'm sure racism has something to do with it, but more than that, from the jump, I would have had to be Israeli. When I say Israeli, I mean Europeanized, European, in some form or another. And you had to be part of certain, I will just call them cliques. Here, they deliberately, because it's a small state of only a few million people, they establish certain programs, certain tracks, they start tracking you for military service when you in your, if not early teens, as you just coming into, around 12 years old, they monitor you to see what kind of educational track you're on, what kind of subjects you're taking, what are you qualified to do. They do that here. And it follows you all the way from your early teens until it becomes time, closer to the time for enlistment and military service. And military service is an obligation here, not an option. It's an obligation. But it goes beyond that to the point that, like I say, once you finish military service, it's certain places, it's certain companies, and certain things, certain areas that unless you've been through these several tracks that they more or less orchestrated from the get, you're not getting in there. I know this for a fact. I want to show it to you as a closeout for this evening. It's about 30 minutes long, a little bit more. It's called the Talpiot Project. Those of you all that are in the radio audience, go to YouTube and put up in that search line the Talpiot Project. Talpiot. Project. It's about 39 minutes long. Let me post it in the room. If you could access this link, give me a 7 in the room, please. If you could access this link, give me a 7 in the room, please. Hold on a second. Let me put it in there for you. Five, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Hit play. Who does Israel rule?
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, it's Brendan O'Connell, the Bounty Boy, coming to you from Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. It is Monday the 29th of January,
Today we're going to be talking about Israel and how it rules. It rules because of the Telpiot program. The specific high technology program started in the late 1970s, which was to put Israeli military intelligence officers in high positions of corporate power and to dominate the high technology sector. And this is why you see people like Benjamin Netanyahu, who can slaughter at will and still be welcomed into countries, doing contracts galore all over the world. Why? The Telpiot program. They dominate the high technology world, databases, encrypted communications, government, military. It doesn't matter, civilian, corporate world. It doesn't matter. They literally control everything. This is just a quick introduction. I'm here in front of the Petronas Twin Towers, a big landmark in Kuala Lumpur, of course, a very modern metropolis. A very modern metropolis. It's a dissident paradise. Ladies and gentlemen, you must understand the Telpiot program and its importance and the domination of Israel of the high technology. It doesn't need a nuclear weapon because the nuclear weapon is their ability to switch off your infrastructure. And in closing, before we get into the video, a nice 15-minute short one, just remember the two Spectre and Meltdowns that were flaws found in Intel CPUs.
Listen to this.
That was deliberate flaws put in by the Israeli state in their very nice, highly sophisticated CPU fabrication factory, where it designs and manufactures the latest Intel CPUs.
Huge industry.
So that they would have access to the world's databases and the world's high technology sector infrastructure, which is hooked into the internet. They did it, and Netanyahu deliberately released that information. And we should very much wonder about Assange and Snowden. I don't know their real story. I'm not saying their plans, but what they've done a lot of is
close
scare people,
attention,
particularly Snowden, and to let people know we are watching. You better watch what you say and what you do. And you combine that with Intel CPU flaws, which are so incredibly important to understand. You understand why Netanyahu released that information. He's saying, you better shut your mouth to the corporate world, to the government world, because we've kill switched you. Ladies and gentlemen, short 15 minutes, the Telpiot program. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe and please donate. And please go to my Patreon account where I really want to focus my efforts.
Okay, enough. Let's get on with it.
You know who you are. We're working on really good programs. And thanks too to my new camera assistant. I'm not going to name him at this moment, but I have a local Malaysian friend now who's assisting me. And this is wonderful news, and we're networking now with local Malays.
So you got out of here.
Translating these videos into Bahasa Melayu. Thanks for watching. Ciao for now. Hold our affairs, and I'll speak to you very soon. Telpiot program.
All right, Hebrews, pay attention.
Thank you.
My heart beat quickly. This was the last place I wanted to be. The tent was dark, lit only by flickering candles in colourful glass lamps from the Orient. Thieves made deals in shadowed corners, and tinkers traded their deadly creations for illicitly won coin.
The company Intel is now opening its biggest plant outside of the United States, and this one is going to be in Israel. The plant is set to produce the world's most advanced computer microprocessor. We all seem to have these in our computers.
This is a place called Kiryat Gat.
Young, dumb, and full of rum, barley bound. My biggest concern for my morning surf. Computing woes in the olden days were limited to the mother.
Well, that's way back there.
Your mother removed the power cord to your VIC-20 or Commodore 64.
Goodness gracious, I remember that computer.
The main hope you would do your homework. In those heady days of the early 1990s,
Commodore.
we pondered the raw power of 64 kilobits of memory. Then moving on from a data cassette to a 5 1/4 inch floppy, then a 386DX 33
yes, sir. Floppy disk.
to a 486, then a Pentium processor model, all the way up to the standard 4,000 megahertz and beyond. We now take for granted. Yes, these were carefree, innocent days. There was no such thing as a computer virus for ordinary folk. Assange and his friends were still wank-worming the Pentagon and NASA at that stage, allegedly. Now the entire world is hooking up to the Internet of Things, from self-driving cars to smart light bulbs, to smartphones, to robot milking machines and medical nanotechnology. And who has made themselves indispensable in the field of cybersecurity against the emerging threat
Silicon Valley.
New critical and non-critical infrastructure to its
That's what they call it here.
Maybe go
on how you three guys got together and came up with this crazy idea.
A couple of years after all of us were discharged from the military, each went his own way, and at some point we realized, okay, we are pretty bored with what we do today.
We kept thinking that we want to do something special. Right?
These are young people, very young people.
Looking at different areas until
20.
we learned about the world of connected
Many of
cars.
them. They become heads of their own companies after the Army in Unit 8200.
More computerized than we realized. You have dozens of different computers in each vehicle. Almost everything you can imagine is somehow controlled by a computer. In the recent years, it became almost a trend to connect vehicles to the internet. And once you take such a complicated machine that has so much software in it and so many computers and you connect it to the internet, you have a serious problem.
So how do you guys know how to do all this stuff?
The three of us served together in the military in Unit 8200.
In the 8200 unit.
We've served for 6 years together
Top
in
secret.
the 8200
Intelligence unit.
Unit H200 is the backbone of the Israeli intelligence community, and it's also a hotbed for Israeli high-tech. In recent years, when the name of the game is cyber, offensive cyber, defensive cyber, Unit A200 is there among the top 4 or 5 leaders in the world. The exact comparison is to US NSA, to British General Communication Headquarters.
Unit 8200. An Israeli military intelligence program. And these graduates of the Israeli Defense Force now come to your corporate HQ to assist you in keeping the bad guys out. But what if the guys trying to get in are the same guys who just came to your IT department? We all know the old gangster scam, start a window repair business, pay people to break windows. I put to you, this is exactly what Israel has done.
Pay attention now.
The world of cybersecurity is totally dominated by Israel.
Totally.
But even more than Unit 8200 is the other military program few knew about till very recently, and few talk about to this day, the Telpiot program. This is a vastly different program to Unit 8200. This is a program that has been operating for over 30 years, a program that creates large corporate entities that now dominate the world's IT sector. The Telpiot program is an elite Israeli Defense Force training program. The recruits have to demonstrate outstanding academic ability in the sciences and show great leadership potential. Graduates of the Telpiot program pursue double majors in higher education while also serving in the army. They then utilize their experience to further Israeli Defense Force research and development in technological leadership positions. The program was inaugurated in 1979. The initiators of the program were Professor Felix Dothan and Professor Shul Ratziv of the Hebrew University. They submitted the idea to the Israeli Chief of Staff, Raphael Eitan. Mr. Eitan is also a good friend, or was a good friend.
He's dead now.
Netanyahu. The idea was to harness human creativity to develop new technologies for the army. The program is sponsored by the Israeli Air Force and Israeli Defense Force Administration for the development of weapons and the technological industry. It is run directly under the auspices of the Hebrew University of Jerusalem. In addition to the 3 years obligated by Israeli law, military service includes 6 years of standing army service in a wide variety of positions. The total program, including military service, is 9 long years. These graduates go on to own and create and run their own companies. Many end up as the heads of corporations such as Microsoft in Israel.
Young guys.
Perhaps to really understand the power of Telpiot in a shorter time as possible,
Young women.
we should study one man, Zohar Zissapel, and one company, Rad Group. Zissapel was one of the original graduates of the Telpiot program. When I found this Information Underground article on a forum in 2007, I also found this BDS article on Telpiot. Now let's understand and grasp the foundational importance of the Talpiot program from this short article in an online Israeli journal, Israel 21C. This was originally published in 2009 on another website. The article by Karen Kloosterman disappeared after I made Talpiot known in court documents at the time I was speaking to members of the West Australian counter-terrorism on this particular issue. The website and most of the limited public writing on Talpiot and its graduates was removed, totally, except for that BDS article. I would also add with regard to this issue that I am the only human being on the planet who has had the Israeli state name them directly as the reason for a Friends of Israel rally, held 8 days before the start of a high-profile trial on August the 8th, 2010. This Friends of Israel rally took place in Perth, Western Australia. Perhaps the Israeli ambassador, Yuval Rotem, Israeli Deputy Defence Minister, Danny Ayalon, Australian Foreign Minister Stephen Smith and 135 local and federal members of the Australian Parliament were concerned about something. Head of State Counter-Terrorism Barry Shelton had emailed me, quote, "We all respect your work," and invited me for a coffee 2 months before the rally was arranged. I wonder what we were going to talk about. Let me put what happened in the context of a Californian man going through the same 8-year torture process. Will convert population differences between Western Australia, 2.7 million people, and California, 40 million people, into an equivalent...
He can't exactly tell you what he's talking about.
Imagine Bill Smith, a native of Los Angeles, California, met an American Jewish guy who had served in the Israeli Defense Force. Imagine if this guy, we'll call him Leon Wend, had high security clearances and was installing the weapons and sensor systems on the brand new Seawolf-class US Navy attack submarine.
It happens just like that.
Imagine if Leon Wend had been showing publicly hundreds of photos and video of the interior of this highly classified sub, years before any material had been released to the public. Imagine if Bill Smith made a complaint about a security breach to American authorities. Then, imagine if Bill Smith wrote about Leon Wend and his sudden move to the Israeli company Verint, a company that specialises in critical infrastructure security and data intercepts for law enforcement.
Tried to get in there too, couldn't.
Now we find Leon is installing CCTV security on the Los Angeles public transport network just after the same company, Verint, had installed the same equipment in the London Tube just before the bombing in 2005. Now imagine Leon Wend makes a complaint to the Los Angeles FBI that Bill Smith was stalking him by naming him online, and Bill Smith is interviewed by counter-terrorism police. Imagine, on hearing the details of Mr. Wend and the security risk he poses, the Los Angeles FBI field office tell Mr. Bill Smith to be quiet, and they would investigate. Imagine, a year or so later, Mr. Smith attends a rally in support of the Palestinians and calls a hardcore Jewish Zionist activist a, quote, racist Jew, with a, quote, religion of racism, hate, homicide, and ethnic cleansing. Mr. Smith then ends up charged for racially vilifying the king, and is further charged for incitement for making extremely banal
under arrest
about Jewish power you could hear at a Professor Norman Finkelstein meeting. Imagine if Bill Smith tells police if they continue with the ridiculous charges, he will be raising matters of national security at the trial. Imagine a full-blown harassment campaign begins against Mr. Bill Smith and his friends and family. Imagine there are 4 suspicious deaths, including his sister. Imagine the head of California State Counter-Terrorism invites Bill Smith out for coffee to discuss Israeli intelligence activity, and he emails on his official police email, "We all respect your work." Imagine a few months later, a rally to support the Israeli state is organised, and the Israeli ambassador to the US is there in person. The Israeli Deputy Foreign Minister is there via video link. The US Secretary of State is there in person. 100 members of Congress and the Senate are there in person, and almost the entire US political class write letters of support for the event.
Connected dots, Israelites.
Christians and Jews from all over the US attend the event in person.
Evangelical.
A keynote speaker is the man who brought the hate speech charges against Bill Smith, Stanley Elliott Keyser. And this Friend of Israel rally is reported on by the local Jewish online journal as being directly organised in response to Mr. Bill Smith. Not only is this an obvious attempt to intimidate the state political, judicial and legal class, is a giant international incident and violation of state-to-state relations, but you'd never know it, because despite reporting the event in the local newspaper and recording footage of the event itself for all to see, no media outlet will touch it. Not even Iran Press TV, even though their senior international correspondent swore black and blue he was waiting on funding for the story. Funding that never came, but they strung me along for 2 long years. Of course, Bill Smith is me, Brendan Lee O'Connell. I hope this little sideline exemplifies the point that understanding the Talpiot program is key to understanding Israel's continuing success. Now, getting back to the main game. Here is journalist Karen Klusterman writing about Zissapel and Red Group. I'm going to read its important sections and make comment along the way. Remember, Red Group is one of hundreds of Israeli high-technology startups, some big, some really big, and some small.
There's several different companies.
Together to Israel, a quote, technology juggernaut.
Tried to get in, every one of them couldn't get in.
The article. I don't like big organisations, says Zohar Zissapel, the co-founder and chairman of Rad Data Communications, one of Israel's most successful group of companies. Rumour has it that one of Israel's most successful entrepreneurs wears sandals and jeans to work and flies economy class. The sandals part is true, he tells Israel 21C, but he no longer flies economy. I did it for many years, says Zissapel, who has earned millions through the 27 high-tech startups he's created with his brother Yehuda in as many years. People told me it was too arrogant. Lauded by entrepreneurs as one of the most successful and prolific high-tech entrepreneurs in Israel or anywhere, especially in the telecom industry, Zissapel humbly says if it weren't them, someone else would have created the technologies developed by RAD and its group of companies.
Tap your line.
6 RAD group companies now listed on NASDAQ include RadVision, Ceragon Networks, Radware, RIT Technologies, Radcom, and Silicom. RAD has helped change life as we know it, enabling high-speed wireless communication and secure telephone networks and banking. Today, RAD is a solutions provider for more than 100 telecom operators around the world, including AT&T, British Telecom, Deutsche Telekom, France Telecom, Japan Telecom,
at the top was the me.
It provides communication tools to major players in the banking, commerce, education, finance, government, military, transportation, and utility sectors.
Equals I can steal your data.
Trend, says Zissapel. We were lucky to be starting in the beginning of the 80s when Israel was still a very socialist country. In the beginning, he admits, it was hard to change the world's image of Israel from a predominantly agricultural exporter to one that has fashioned, at the time, the smallest modem on the planet. When Zissapel went to develop a business abroad, people said, we're buying oranges, not modems, he recalls. Could life be different without us? I don't think any company can claim that, says Zissapel, not even Google or Microsoft. He gives the comparison for those who do it first. When you do something first, you'll have others following you.
True that.
Born in Tel Aviv in 1949, Zissapel's father, an immigrant from Poland, was a shoe salesman. Before becoming the head of the Electronic Research Department of the Ministry of Defense in Tel Aviv, Zissapel had studied at the Technion, the Israel Institute of Technology, for 2 degrees, then went on to Tel Aviv University for an MBA. In 1981, he quit the Ministry of Defense and started RAD from the back offices of Bionet, a company his brother had started. Zohar's first assignment at RAD was to manage the development of the company's first product, a mini modem that would change the computer industry. He and his brother Yehuda were always and still are very much a team in their entrepreneurial activities.
Always operating in the background.
His brother vied to build a high-tech company. Zissapel laughs because it actually happened. Me and my brother, we are totally different. The fact is, we are compatible because we stayed together for so many years, are together today, and will be together in the future. We have very different strengths and weaknesses. Today, RAD has blossomed into
27 companies. Think about
over
it.
the 27 years that the brothers have been working together. The group, which employs 3,500 people globally, has been called, quote, the world's most successful incubator of telecom-related startups by Business 2.0 magazine.
Top secret.
The idea comes first, then we start looking
Tap
at
your
Mr.
phone.
Isabel, who usually looks at a pool of Israeli
listen to
developers or ones in the US who are interested in coming back to Israel for work. We've done 27 companies in 27 years. In good times, in bad times, the rate stays the same, says Isabel, about one a year. Once a year, because we cannot do it faster, he adds. End of article. Did I just read that right?
Yeah.
27 companies in 27 years.
Think about it.
Count them.
How do they do
That's
it?
one Israeli
why?
corporate entity. One. Israel now leads the world in high technology of every kind, from CPUs to medical nanotechnology, cybersecurity, encryption technologies, telecommunications, cryptocurrencies, billing services, databases for banking and financial security systems, military high technology systems of every kind, robotics in agriculture, robotics in general, water supply systems, food production and distribution, critical
They don't really need the
security,
bomb.
and the emerging terror of artificial intelligence. It would be far easier to ask ourselves what the Israeli high-tech sector doesn't control or dominate. While Detroit and other US cities fall into disrepair, Tel Aviv booms. Now, where did they get the money for that? And what's more, where did they get the technology for that? There is no way to effectively boycott Israel. Every country on the planet is signing high technology deals with this technology juggernaut. Technology that Israel has stolen straight out from the United States.
Stolen!
Technology that can stop any country's critical infrastructure and bring its economy to its knees.
Shut down your electricity, everything.
Israel does not need nuclear weapons in the classic sense. It has the ultimate nuke. Control of the emerging Internet of Things and the Internet in general. And nothing is safe. From your self-driving car to your electricity grid to your bank accounts to your water supply to your food and food distribution systems, in hacker speak, Israel has you pwned. With Israel's domination of cybersecurity, we also find Zionist-run American companies like IMA Financial Services. Let's explain the multi-dimensional scam. But let's hear from Rob Cohen, head of IMA, first.
You know, it's always interesting this time of year when you can reflect and look back. And in many ways, business has been good this year. But if you want to talk about bigger transformational things, the things that I'm most proud of is our investment in technology and data intelligence, so that we can change the value proposition for our customers and use information in new and different ways. I think change has always been a constant, but what is changing is technology and data is giving us insight in ways that we didn't have access to information in the past. And we as humans are having a hard time adapting to the speed of the change. Our industry, by nature of the business that we're in, we have access to more data than probably most industries have.
IMA insures corporations against cyber attack. They are also intimately involved with Israel and some unusual happenings in Colorado.
I'm Eric Singer, Gazette.com, and this is Between the Lines, a 1-2 punch of great economic news for Colorado Springs just this week. First, we've learned, of course, that Frontier is coming back to the Colorado Springs Airport, resuming service. And now we've learned the National Cyber Intelligence Agency is coming here to Colorado Springs. Joining us now to put the center in perspective is Gazette reporter Wayne Heilman. So explain it to us. First, what is the National Cyber Intelligence Agency Center?
The National Cyber Intelligence Center includes three elements. There's a rapid response center that's designed to help companies cope with and recover from cyber attacks. There's also an institute that is designed to train public officials and bureaucrats about cyber threats. And then lastly, there's a research center that will delve into cyber threats.
How many people will be employed?
About 100 people. It will be located in a building owned by UCCS that now houses the Mortgage Solutions Financial Expo Center. It'll occupy the part of the building that is currently empty, and it will cost about $15 to $20 million to renovate that building. The governor is going to ask the state legislature for about $8 million of state money. They're going to raise the rest from industry and foundations.
And this center is also an economic magnet for other businesses, too.
The governor believes many businesses will want to locate close to this center and close to the other assets, cyber assets that are located in the Colorado Springs area. There are many military facilities that having to do with cyber, and about 70-some businesses in the cyber arena.
Wow. Thanks for putting it all in perspective. And, of course, you can read Wayne's full story in the Gazette and on Gazette.com. With Between the Lines, I'm Eric Singer, Gazette.com.
Colorado is the former home of American Zionist Jew Daniel Lewin, graduate of the Telpiot program and founder of Akamai, the company that runs and controls the Internet data load, a critical system that keeps the Internet functioning. In fact, it's the system. Daniel was also the first man to die on 9/11, allegedly. One of the great mysteries of 9/11 yet to be explained in any meaningful way. Also, with IMA in Colorado, we find Stephen Waldman, member of the oldest synagogue in the U.S., Congregation Shearith Israel. Now, I found this very interesting. Founded in 1654 by Spanish and Portuguese Jews, they have a nice AIPAC sign at the bottom of their page. I assure you, go and have a dig. There's way more to find there. Denver, Colorado was also the home of Eric Mitisek, former Denver, Colorado Chief Innovation Officer and now manager of an IMA subsidiary called IM Analytics. In this article, Mitisek explains his new role. Here's a quote. Few details were shared about the new IMA venture, but the new business will be part of the InsurTech industry, which uses technology to maximize the insurance industry. Mitisek, who starts as president on August the 1st, will be responsible for leveraging vast amounts of information to create better experiences for IMA clients, the company said.
Right. Sure.
America's new cybersecurity command will be going in where? Yeah, you guessed it. Colorado, home of the well-heeled Aspen Israeli firster crowd of Sheldon Adelson, Donald Trump's chief financier and controller.
Look at the connection
So
there,
let's summarize IMA and the massive influx of Israeli startups, graduates of the Telpiot program and Unit 8200 pouring into Colorado. It's pretty simple. Israel, with Unit 8200 and 100 private corporate graduates of that program like Black Cube,
breaking it down,
Harvey Weinstein's hackers of choice, whack the corporate military government IT network. Maybe East European or Chinese hackers get the blame. IMA comes along, expresses its sincere condolences for the loss of data, pays the insurance, or you buy insurance off them, and IMA organises the clean-up specialist crew to come into your allegedly secure IT environment to advise and fix the damage. While they're there, they fill the target system with more malware, creating more business and sending more data to Israel. This is part of how BB gets what he wants. Every time. Time is short. BB needs a war. He needs a distraction while he gets great not happening. Maybe Secretary of Defense Jim Mattis can help. He's sure the war on terror is over and a far more profitable and stable Cold War 2.0 can begin.
We will continue to prosecute the campaign against terrorists that we're engaged in today, but great power competition, not terrorism, is now the primary focus of U.S. national security. This strategy is fit for our time, providing the American people the military required to protect our way of life, stand with our allies, and live up to our responsibility to pass intact to the next generation those freedoms that all of us enjoy here today. We face growing threats from revisionist powers as different as China and Russia are from each other. Nations that do seek to create a world consistent with their authoritarian models, pursuing veto authority over other nations' economic, diplomatic, and security decisions.
Perhaps Mad Dog Mattis will explain to the American public how its friend and ally Israel is providing these very two countries with stolen US high technology and have even managed to put their own direct puppet president in the White House, Donald J. Trump. Now the Trump administration demand more constraints on Chinese trade. Guess who's taking up the slack? The problem is not China. They have 1.3 billion people to feed. The problem is Israel. China is happy to trade and play its part in world affairs. It is being used as a public whipping boy and Goldstein decoy.
1984.
If they all meet at Bilderberger, maybe that's a role it's happy to play while it builds ports and infrastructure in Israel. While Alex Jones convinces you North Korea and China are about to nuke your local 7-Eleven, Bibi will use Iran's build-up in Syria and Hezbollah's threat to attack Israel's own critical physical infrastructure as the excuse he needs to cut a swathe all the way to the west bank of the Euphrates and blood Rouhani's nose. Iran, under the Rouhani presidency and the Shia militias he controls, have kindly assisted in wiping out all organized Sunni resistance to Israel, and the breakup of the Middle East is almost complete.
It's just like that.
Since the devastation of Iraq, there is no chance of pan-Arab nationalism threatening Israel's existence, and greater Israel is a step closer.
Sure right about
the Saudis have no choice but to cooperate. While Israel's armed forces are considered a joke by military analysts, killing kids in Gaza is hardly a tough fight. Their standoff high-tech capability cannot be matched by anyone in the region.
Iron Dome.
A counterinsurgency against Hezbollah is one thing.
Arrow.
But all-out regional war with the massive application of firepower combined with detailed intelligence is another. And now the US is directly in the region in sufficient numbers and with sufficient equipment to ably assist. There will be nothing left of Hezbollah and Iranian proxy forces in the region, short of a miracle. I'm not sure what that miracle is. Putin, the savior, will do nothing except play Pontius Pilate and resupply the region with more Russian weapons. Iran was lured deep into the Middle East by Israel via Russia, and Putin and his best friend Bibi and Trump will stab Iran right in the back. Is there a good doctor in the house who can fix this Zionist bug? However, even with war, Iran will not be directly attacked. A strong Iran is required to justify the massive Israeli military high-technology sector and create hatred and division among the Gulf states in a Sunni-Shia dialectic. The United States also needs a dangerous and well-armed Russia and China to justify its stimulation, via the Pentagon budget, of its own high-technology sector, and vice versa. War is good business. The threat of war is good business. They don't know how else to keep the high-technology sectors pumping along. They're all out of ideas. If I sound somehow I'm anti-Iranian, you're wrong. I'm anti-Rouhani and his policies currently. Any criticism of Iranian foreign policy always means you work for the Muslim Brotherhood, the Saudis, the Gulf states, whatever. I simply want some balance. There are too many Putin and Rouhani groupies out there. Way too many. Could we please have a little objective analysis? No one is innocent in the region. Everyone has blood on their hands. We need to try and have a balanced and objective analysis bit to promote peace in the region.
It's not intended
War
to
being
be.
the major organising principle of society, and with fear the major control mechanism elites use to control local populations, a return to a simple and easy-to-manage Cold War 2.0 is a preferred option. Now the grassroots citizen online insurgency has been largely quelled by high-technology online AI and real-life movement control mechanisms and federal legislation. These could never have been put in place under the old Soviet-era Cold War system. People would notice the Soviet-style controls. But now the job is done. We can all forget the terrorist threat and settle into the comfortable and easy-to-manage terror of global thermonuclear war. New office renovation and paint job, same boss, same management method. You can go back to sleep. Until the Talmudic racist supremacist state of Israel's domination of the high-technology sector, Internet of Things, critical infrastructure, cybersecurity, robotics, AI and 5G is exposed, we will be forever frustrated as Bibi cuts the throat of a Muslim child live on the television, and we all wonder how it is he gets away with it. Bribery and blackmail is part of it. The 3 T's sum it up. Talmud, Telpiot, technology. Soon, Donald Trump will stand in the ruins of a Detroit industrial park and give you the good news. A joint Israeli-American technology park is to be built. The technology will be U.S. taxpayer funded. Hand it to Israel, then hand it back to the U.S., and you will be grateful. You will have some jobs, and Donald Trump will be re-elected. As long as you know, BB and Cambridge Analytica's narrative is, support my man Trump, and I will produce jobs and a stable economy. Don't support my man Trump, then we have some Telpiot Unit 8200 critical infrastructure nukes for you, and that goes for anyone else who wants to take on Pax Judaica. With BB and his Special Forces gang who started all of the above-mentioned programs, we will get only war. There will be no dialogue, no chance for peace between Muslim, Jew and Christian, atheist or communist, black or white, rich or poor, gay or straight, male or female, just war, polarization and the dialectic. Until exhausted, you will accept BB and the Sheldon Adelson man. No Messiah is coming. No powerful, badass leader on a white horse come to restore order to the Wild West.
We want you, Shane.
There's no going back from you. Right or wrong, it's a brand. A brand sticks. There's no going back. Now you run on home to your mother and tell her everything's all right.
The stuff of movies.
Shane's not coming back, and we're going to have to do it ourselves. Rosa Parks woke up in the morning and refused to get to the back of the bus and change history, and she never even had a smartphone. If not now, when? If not me, who? Here I am at my Muslim Brotherhood $1 million studio. InfoWars regular Joel Skousen is upset I'm upsetting his narrative. Help me and my friends keep upsetting Joel, Alex and Donald. Please donate, join Patreon, and give me and my friends the resources we need to get the narrative out there that will hamper, or at least marginally disrupt, the total takeover of the United States by the neocon Zionists, Chabad Lubavitch, Russian Jewish gangsters, drug traffickers and weapons traders. They are not all powerful. They can only operate in the dark. Julian Assange is fond of saying, lights on, rats out.
All right, come on back up in the room. I'm sure you got the idea. As we see, it's an ongoing thing. Now, first of all, in conclusion, we understand that Yah has a plan and man has a plan. What we've been able to is just how closely these heathens work together and how they will bear none and spare none and creating whatever. I mean, it's the stuff of movies. What's the difference in a movie and some of the things we see in real life? 9/11 was nothing to create. And all the other false and contrived and created at the hands of the Euro Gentiles. But they forget one thing. Yah runs this. Our Father runs this. They are merely carrying out small tasks to bring about the fulfillment of prophecy. That's just the way it is. So it's not a real surprise. And we have those of us who live in this area, we have the added blessing of seeing it in action. Oh, it's up to the Most High when. But as these things develop, we need to be knowing about it. We need to observe it and call it a spade. A spade is a spade. We're not afraid by any means. Believe me. After all these different wars that we've been through, Yah has our back no matter what. We have to believe in the fulfillment of the prophecy. I mean, these heathens are scared as all get out. They don't know what to expect. But what do they have coming? Most of them don't even believe in Yah. The pig eating behind. What they think about that is nothing. Every day is a party. I mean, we've just gone through, we know Hanukkah. We're going through Hanukkah now. No. We've seen all manner of beasts. Purim, excuse me. All manner of abominations walking up and down the street. Yes. Saw this guy with a lion head on. I guess he thought he was a lion or something. Oh, we saw the devil himself. A few times. I mean, they love, this is the time they love when they can dress up in the costumes. And they could portray the devil himself with a red eye collar and horns and a tail, and they love it. They know nothing about its true origins and what it truly means. This is a time for them to have Halloween. Little children, I mean, they can barely walk, looking like what is that? Tony Tiger.
Dark Invaders. You kind of know.
Who?
Invaders.
Invaders, you name it.
Superman.
You name it. Pure wickedness, Sister Grace. Pure wickedness. But it's all good. But I want to kind of, for those who hadn't heard, and to try to get up to snuff, back to where we are. Part 2, which I'll be bringing next week, we'll get on toward the real deal. The greater or the bigger picture. Because, there's always these threats going back and forth. They're just pawns. Pawns in the game. Putin's and the Donald Trump's and all the rest of these clowns. We get on to the deeper picture. I can't see when. None of us know when. What we can observe is the different signs and symbols that take place. You can there's a fear in the air. Everybody's trying to act like everything is normal, but there's fear in the air. It's great fear because it's part of the narrative. But when you have the Most High Yah, and we understand the prophecies that will be going to be a remnant. Whether we be physically in life is part of that remnant, a remnant is the remnant. Because the end game is to reach the kingdom. And that's what is most important. Just want to shed a little light. Update everybody on what's going on in this part of the world. But we one people, worldwide, no matter where we be posted up. No need to fear the beast, Jabez. You sure right about that. Mm-hmm. So until next time, if it be the Most High's will, that's our lesson. And with that, I'll say Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom, family.
I do have a small weekend review, if it so be that I'm able to bring it. If not, next week. But there's always something going on in this world. These heathens is crazy. Shabbat shalom lekulam.
Shabbat shalom.
And with that, I relinquish this mic. Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah.